guys, it's Kelly and I am back with another video for Create a Smile. Today we're going to be using Wrap It Up and the Snow Dance stamp set, and then I have some pattern papers here that are also from Create a Smile. They have these beautiful diagonal stripes on the back and I absolutely love them. So I wanted to use the largest present stamp in the Wrap It Up set, and this has some of them are cut out and some of them are solid, meaning like it actually has photopolymer on the back of them. Anything that has like a cut out stamp, the best way to get it straight is to just throw it on your craft surface and then pick it up with your block. So that's pretty much what I did. I just, kind of threw it on the card. I used Memento Tuxedo Black ink to stamp that out. And then if you follow my blog, if you follow my YouTube channel, then you know that I don't use a lot of pattern paper. I prefer to do my Copics, make my own patterns. However, I didn't really feel like I could create patterns myself that would be as pretty as these papers were for these presents. So a lot of the reason why I don't do paper piecing is because I feel like it's very flat. Today I'm going to show you how I make paper piecing work for me, and it's by using a little bit of Copic shading. So I'm inking up various parts of the stamp, so I have one image for each present, and I'm stamping them on the pattern papers that I have. This one of the presents has a little tag on it, and I wanted that to be white, so I'm stamping that, and then I'm going to go ahead and stamp my Santa from the Snow Dance set, and I'm going to color him with Copics. I sped up the Copic coloring. It wasn't on the Santa anyway. This isn't what the main focal point of the video was. This Copic coloring on the presents is. So I have the stamp that's complete to the left there, just so I can use it as a guide for where my shading would be. And I just picked some cool gray markers because the colors I'm using are mostly blues. But you could use whatever you have. So if you have the warms or the tonals, whatever you have, to just add a little bit of shading. And you'll be able to even see it right here on the pattern paper. I used my lightest color, which was C1, to just add a little bit of shading to the left and the right of the box, just to give it some roundness, just to make it a little fuller. And then I went in with C3 and just did a line down the side and a little bit of shading on the bottom. And you can tell even here before it's cut out, before it's put on the card, that shading gives that box some dimension. So this is what I did with every single one of the presents, and I will show you a couple of them. Like this one is tucked behind another present, so the shading will be more on the left-hand side than it will be on the right. I'm doing the same process, starting with the C1 on both sides, and then I'll use the C3 on, again, both sides, just a line of it on the right hand side, because that's not where the majority of the shadows would be. It would be on the left hand side where it's actually tucked behind the box, and then that's where I shaded out a little more with C3, but then I also brought in a line of C5 so that it would have some really good depth, I guess is the way I would describe it. And again, you can see that there's a difference from the left to the right. But that's okay, and it should look that way. It should look darker on the left if it's tucked behind something. So I just went through and did this to every single one of the images. On the red here, it's kind of hard to see what the shading is, but on those lines where it's a paler yellow, you can see them really well. I could have went darker. I could have went with the C3 is my lightest color, and then the C5. But I didn't think it was necessary. I was happy with the little bit of depth that I was getting with the C1 and the C3. So now all those are done. I will tell you that I did go back and re-outline them. I also re-outlined the stamp that I did on my card base. Here I'm going for the tag because it's so tiny. I did a little bit of C1 and then I hit it with my 0 marker. And then I'm using the same grays to color in Santa's fur trim and his beard and his gloves, because those would all be white, and I just stuck with the C1 and the C3. I didn't go any darker than that because, they are white objects, so you're just putting in the shadows whenever you're coloring in something that's white. I love this little Santa. I think he's totally adorable. In that same stamp set, there's a little reindeer who's super cute too. I was trying to figure out a way if maybe I could incorporate him in there, but then it seemed to get too busy. I wanted to do his shoes black, and I forgot to show you. That's my fault. I brought in some C7 and some C9, and the lightest color for those is the C3. Then I'm going to move on to his skin tone. And when everything is really pale like this and you're doing your skin tone, I usually start with my skin tone first, but my C markers were already out, so I wasn't going to, cap them all up just to do the skin tone first. So I started with my lightest and then moved on to my darkest. There would be a shadow like where his beard is behind his nose, and then there would also be one underneath his hat. This is going to look really, really dark when I'm done, and it's because everything right now is pretty white. But you'll see once his suit gets colored in the traditional red color, that skin tone starts to lighten up. It's just color is perceived by what's around it. So when you look at something like this where it's all just stark white, everything else is going to look exceptionally darker. So for my reds, again, I'm just starting with my lightest. This is really simple Copic coloring. The only part where I really tried to pay any attention to where his hat would be gathered. I left myself some little lines so that I could put in a highlight. And highlights on clothes are something that I'm still working on, but what I have noticed is it basically looks like poop. Basically, it looks like poop until you put your final layer on, like your lightest color, which is hard for me because I'm coloring it and I'm second guessing myself, and I'm like, but this looks like not good. Just try it and stick with it. So here I figured one part of his coat would be folded over the other. I just picked one side or the other. The one that's darker will be, or the one that's under will be darker where it meets the second one, and that the piece that's on top will be lighter. I hope that makes sense. So there's the final coat, and I'm finally like, okay, that looks like a gathered hat. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and start fussy cutting out my pieces. So I did this to Santa, I did it to the tag here, and then all of those presents that I cut. I will tell you that I re-outlined them before I cut them out. It's just easier. Trying to chase all those little pieces around is frustrating. So I have a Memento Tuxedo black marker here, and I'm outlining the edges of all of my images. I prefer usually to keep the colored part away from me in case my marker slips. And this is going to ensure, any edges that I might have had that didn't cut that well. But most importantly, because we're paper piecing here, all of your edges are not going to be flush. It's impossible. You're not going to cut every single piece the same way. So putting on this black marker will help it blend into the stamped lines, so it looks like one piece instead of, 6 or 8 different pieces. Once I have them all outlined, I'm going to go ahead and start gluing. And when I am paper piecing, I find it is easiest if I start with a large piece of whatever it is that I'm putting together, the largest piece, and then kind of build out from there. So that way you can snug all of the ones that are around it up next to it. That's just the way that I have found it works for me. When I first tried paper piecing, I used to work left to right, and then I would find my right was like a little wonky, like it didn't match up to the lines, and it's because, like I said, none of those pieces are going to be flush. It's impossible. You get them as close as you can, and you hope it's good enough. But those are just some little tricks that you can use for paper piecing to make sure that it looks the way that it should. So here I realized I need to put that tag on there, and somehow in my outlining with the Memento black marker, I missed this one. So we're just going to do that super quick before we glue it down, especially with those, it's a white tag, and have the white edges. It would look I think it would look strange without that, black outline. And then we'll go ahead and put on the last 2 presents, and then basically the background of the card is done. And you can see like all those bows are, it's half on some pieces, half on the background piece. But once everything goes into place, it looks like it's one piece, like all of those presents are there. So I wanted to pop my Santa up with some dimensional adhesive, so I'm just trimming out some little tiny pieces to do that. And I'm not adhering him yet because I want to stamp my sentiment first. I have made the mistake in the past of adhering something with foam adhesive first and then trying to stamp around it, and it almost always gets in the way. It almost always messes up stamping. So I chose the Ho 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 sentiment from the Snow Dance kit, and then on the inside of my card it will say Merry Christmas. Originally my game plan was put them both on the front, but it just wasn't working, wasn't flowing. So I'm going to add Santa down there. I didn't add anything else. I mean, today is a completely clean and simple card, and I'm still happy with it. I think that little bit of Copic coloring with the grays really helps to give it some dimension, and so I hope you'll try it and see if it works for you. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. I hope that you have a wonderful day. I will catch you later. Bye.